Hey everybody, it's Bob Boniall here. Now, many of you know me as a production designer and a creative director and producer. There's not a lot of that going on right now. Some of you also know me as a consultant and a coach. And actually, right now, I'm finding that I'm having a lot of conversations with people about how they're feeling, what they can do, really about uncertainty. So here's the deal with uncertainty, or here's how I deal with uncertainty. I try to keep a focus on three things. One, what is outside of my control? What do I have no agency in? There's not a lot of use of focusing on that. It's good to note those things and understand they're happening, but then put them away. What do I have control over? What are the things that are for me to do? What's in front of me? What's an action I can take, a decision I can make that is next? Now that's useful to focus on. That's something I can give my best effort to. It's a place that maybe I can deliver some value to the world if I stick with the moment and do it right. And then the third thing that I try to keep my focus on is understanding the difference between those things. Very often, I will conflate something that is outside of my control into something I think I have control over. And that's just not the case. Now, right now, there are definitely circumstances going on that are way outside our agency or our control. And you know what? They're a little scary. They're super ambiguous. There's not a lot to sort of go on in terms of like figuring out what's going to happen. And I'll tell you this about human beings. They crave being able to see a pattern that gives them some sense of security. They want to connect facts and observation and evidence and feelings and come up with something that's going to make them feel more comfortable. Now, that tendency has incredible gifts. It's what allows us to tell stories, to be creative, and even to have empathy with each other because we can imagine each other's pattern and each other's stories. But there are ways in which that doesn't serve us because the truth is, there's an outcome I want when I'm considering any fork in the road, and I'm going to tend to stack up the evidence and my feelings and my predictions to support that outcome. And that outcome isn't necessarily the truth. So I try to stick close to facts, and I try to stay open. I have a lot of friends out there who are accessible to the idea of faith. And then I have a lot of other friends who are really glued to empiricism. They like facts, they like science. Here's a beautiful thing. There's a concept that'll work either way for you that I'd like to introduce you to. And it's about this idea of the container we have within us that right now might be feeling full of uncertainty and fear. Now, here's the thing about fear. Fear can't coexist with certain other conscious elements. Curiosity, true curiosity, cannot operate in the same space with fear. That's a powerful thing to know. When you're feeling fear, when you're feeling overwhelm, if you can refocus and say, hang on a second, I'm curious. What could be happening here? What is my role in this? What do I have to do that's right in front of me that through which I can affect my situation? And being curious means to stay detached. There's this great Buddhist parable that talks about a monk out in the woods with his students, and they come across this field of massive boulders, and they look at the boulders and they admire the beauty of the boulders. And the teacher asks his students, are these boulders heavy? And the students say, but master, of course, they're so heavy we couldn't possibly lift them. Look at their size. And the master says, but are they heavy if you don't try to lift them? Detachment is understanding that there are some things that you can see, even some things that might be in front of you, that you don't have to try to lift. You don't have to wrap yourself around their enormity. Instead, you can flow through. There's another perpetuation of that statement I made, that curiosity and fear can't easily coexist at the same time. And it's for those of you who understand a spiritual practice. Fear and faith cannot occupy the same space at the same time. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling fear, lean into faith. Lean into your basic human understanding that maybe you don't have all the answers, but that somewhere out there a higher power maybe does. And that higher power can take many shapes and show up in a lot of different ways. So you can be curious about that. You can be curious to see where that's going to show up. So remember these things, because the days ahead are going to get weird, okay? And they're going to get maybe more uncertain. So remember, what do you not have control over? Don't put a focus there. What do you have control over? Put focus there and do what's next the best you can. And most of all, try to remember the difference between the two. And try not to get caught up in trying to wrap yourself around things that you really just have no agency in. So it's Sunday here in Seattle. It's definitely an unusual Sunday. There's no noise except for the birds and the wind. The sun is out. There are no planes overhead. There are no cars on the streets. Seattle is doing what everybody should be doing, which is we're keeping it low. We're staying with our families. We're not exposing each other to risk, and we're waiting it out. But I'm here with you right now, here, and I'm going to keep showing up here. So keep your eyeballs peeled. I'm excited to be going through this journey with all of you, because here's the thing. This thing we're facing, it might be bigger than any one of us, but it might not be bigger than all of us. So let's stick together.